Oh, gosh. Hi, Gina.
Oh, hello. How are you? Hi, everybody.
I'm doing good in yourself.
Oh, I'm so wonderful. Very grateful. I'm in a grateful space. Absolutely.
How are you doing? It's a pleasure to meet you.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show. And hello to everybody out there. And big hug from Arizona.
Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, thanks for reaching out to the show. I know we've been trying to make this happen since April.
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, since April. You've been a
Yeah.
busy bee, traveling all over.
Yeah. So many
Yeah,
things. Actually, today, I'm in my new space. I feel finally able to be in my body and to receive and, when you go through a big
yeah.
changes, it's just, yeah,
Big changes.
yeah,
Want to elaborate? Like, are you making big career moves? Like, before you answer that question, when one reads about you, like I did, it's not like what does Gina do? It's what doesn't Gina, do when it comes to the artistic world,
yep.
right?
And you know what's funny? I just want to welcome everybody who feels, that people have kind of chastised them for not having one main road that they follow down. Because a lot
Mm.
of times people made me feel bad about that they all kind of have this feeling like you need to pick one and stick with it. And so, for a lot of times, especially when I was younger, I felt there was something wrong with me. And I just realized I'm a curious Gina, and I, I might want to go down one road for like 6 months or a year. And at one point, all of a sudden, it's not resonating with me anymore, or it's just not lighting a fire under me, and I move in another direction. And I think that that's a wonderful way to live if that's what you want to do, and don't let anybody sort of influence that. And once I embraced that, um, I was able to go down. I love business and working, and I love being busy. So I did do the business thing for a long time, working for places like Warner Brothers and Disney and Fox, and I learned a lot. But then I just really wanted to be an entrepreneur and be in charge of my own schedule and my own, I almost needed to break out of the box. It was a different
Yeah.
expression. And, then I went into my being an author and getting several book deals, getting an agent, leaning into my artwork and charities and things like that. So, yeah.
See what I'm talking about right there. But, even though you do so many things and you carry so many tasks and wear so many hats, all complements each other. Yes, you're all over the place, but you're still within that specific niche, right? I mean, from
Yeah.
a media executive, artist, illustrator, author, podcaster, it all complements each other.
Yeah, I mean, and also I've become a spiritual advisor and a teacher, and that's when my bio gets. So it's really kind of hard to write my bio in a way. I also have a little bit of a beauty line with my sister-in-law, but gosh, I like being busy. I like people. I
Yeah.
like meeting people of all walks of life. So I don't know. At my end game, it's really about the community. Everything I do and everything I want to be around is about getting to meet people like you. Um, I've, you know, I've got to meet people all around the world. Like if I go anywhere, I can say, "Hey, I'm coming to town." I've got like five
Yeah.
friends. It doesn't matter. Japan, Australia, South Africa. It doesn't matter. Portugal, because of I'm out there looking for people to connect with. And at the end of the day, all of this is for that because I just love connecting with people and sharing each other's stories, seeing that we are just as magical beings that have so much more control of what we bring into our space. And I think it's going to be really important moving forward as the world is shifting. That, I just feel like in the last 10 years, we've kind of moved away from community, at least in America. People are isolated, people are sad, people are lonely. Um, and it's a habit that I think we need to get out of. We need to get more into, um, you
Yeah.
know, you get used to being alone, even though you don't want to be. And then when you go out to try to, be a part of a community, you don't know where to start. So
especially when you're dealing with different types of people, different cultural backgrounds, different types of emotions. But I mean, you mentioned spirituality, and it plays such a huge role in one's life and one's career and one's growth. You
yeah,
know, like if you put that first, I mean, everything else falls into place. As you said, wherever you go, you can connect with people because you got a good aura around you.
yeah,
You got a good energy around you. And people pick that up. I mean, even with the podcast, we doing this virtually, but I will not lie to you. There hasn't been one guest that has come on here where there wasn't that good energy. And that's
mhm,
because we're practicing spirituality. So, what you put out is what you get back. So the podcast is attracting, like-minded people, but also people on that level of spirituality, that level of energy where there's no bad vibes. And it's
yeah.
so awesome. And I mean, it can happen like this, screen to screen. It doesn't have to happen like face to face. Crazy.
Yep. I love
Yeah.
how spirituality is actually like being broken wide open. It seems recently, all these channels on YouTube, young men maybe that would feel like they couldn't, it'd be too vulnerable of them to talk about spirituality. Now, I have people on my that I follow that I subscribe to that are like 18 years old in like Germany that give me inspirational messages, like a young fella or something, and it can come from anywhere, and that's just also another thing that I love. um, when I was, I felt like I couldn't explore my spirituality and my surroundings for a long time. I was married to a rock star husband, and a lot of music, and in that community I was in, it was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying. You couldn't really talk about spirituality, and then I was also working at the studio, so it felt very, you know, um, very business like minded, and I wasn't being who I really authentically was, that was when I was probably the most, lonely and sad, and I had to break through that, and have my voice and say, spiritual, like you said, I feel like I can handle anything, good or, yeah, life is so challenging. But I do have this like rock that I sit on of spirituality that holds me and grounds me, regardless of the things that come. And some of them have been pretty bad
Yeah. Yeah.
situations, and sad for humanity or whatever. But that spiritual rock just holds me and just, gets me through to that next moment. And then, yeah, I just, for me, it's been life changing to embrace spirituality. It makes me dream. I write
Yeah.
stories, I write fictional stories. My agent is trying to sell a 5-book series right now, and I wrote the first book, and it's like a Harry Potter like story. It's like 100,000 words. We built the whole
Wow.
world. It's all underground, all underwater adventure. It's called Thomas Fine and the Mystery School, and we're putting it out to directors and studios right now. And that whole thing started as a vision of a spiritual vision of, um, otherworldly energies coming together, and humanity on this planet coming together and embracing everything that was living and holding everyone up and speaking telepathically and embracing technology in a positive way.
Yeah.
And in a way, I feel like I'm prophesizing the future, that, just like The Simpsons. um,
That's a good example.
but you know what I mean? And I believe that a lot of these things are like that. They get visions of, that help us. Storytelling is so important to help us expand our heart and just realize how magical each and every person is. And I really try to walk in life that way. Like, if I go to the grocery store, I try to have awareness and connect with
Yeah.
a few people with our eyes and just say hi, and you don't know what that person, that little nod might just wake them up a little bit and say, oh, somebody saw me today, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's a lot of my messages right now, is walking around more aware of how we're affecting the people around and the animals and everything around us. Yeah.
It's respect and kindness, for each person. As you said, you see someone, a complete stranger, walking down the road or in the grocery store, and you just greet them, hi. That one hi can make their day, because they could be going through something, and here's Gina saying hello to me, greeting me, asking me how I am,
Yeah.
and that's part of spirituality as well, because there's something telling you to ask that person, how are you? And that's enough. As you
Yeah.
said, I'm recognized,
Yeah.
someone actually cares. Kindness, basic kindness that we need to practice, as humans. I was with a friend today, and we were having a chat, about the world and the current state. And, as much as there's chaos out there, there's so much more beauty. We just need to like lift the veil. The world is becoming more awakened, and we just need to mutually respect each other, not fight with each other. And it can be these petty things, here in South Africa, for example, that people are fighting about. I'm like, what's the point of it? It's not going to matter in 5 years,
Yeah.
but here you are disputing it. Like, I mean, when we could be living in harmony each day. And he made a good point to me. He said that the thing is, people haven't found their purpose as yet.
Mhm.
So instead of focusing on my life, I'm focused more on Gina's life. And then I see all these accomplishments, and what Gina is doing. And instead of me actually pursuing my purpose and finding out what that is, I'm more focused on you, and I'm hating, and there's so much jealousy.
Yeah.
And I mean, us coming on the podcast and talking about these topics, sends a message out to people, stop, chill, relax.
Yeah, I have a book coming out in January, and in the very front of the book, it's called Planet Walking, a Handbook for the Living. And it's really written for sort of the millennial mindset. It's like little chunks of just the information you need, So
Yeah, yeah,
it's not 500 pages of about energy. It's like, here's what energy is, and here's how you can affect it. And I just feel like people have less time to like go through the hundreds of pages. So I just like, here it is, one, two, three. But I have a big section in there, how to find your soul gifts and your themes in life, because you do have themes, and sometimes it can be hard, but once you start to recognize them, you start to fall into place, and you write down, and you're like, oh, you really do have to kind of break down what is the theme in your life. Like, you like to communicate and talk, right? So and bring community, obviously. So you started a podcast, but if you like to do that, but you didn't have the idea of starting the podcast, you might feel like a little hole or something. So, but you have to break that. It's like, I actually like to talk. I actually like to communicate. I like to do this work. And it could be just momentarily. You might not do it in 10 years, but it can change. But the themes can be like hands-on healing. Like, maybe you want to touch people, even through massage, or it could be meditation, or go doing anything that you want. But it's there's is definitely a process that gets you into a meditative state, to where you can hear your internal voice a little bit more, to practice drowning out the things that really are noise. And because we have, the mind is a supercomputer, and we constantly go back to our mind, right, as the
yeah,
the most important thing. But really, we have to have the mind work with our heart, work with our gut. So our gut is our intuition. Our gut is the one that's leading us towards a job, a person, a relationship. Um, and then our heart is literally going back to we were all born from love. We all came out of the same. There's one thing that we all have different, like, dialects or colors or whatever, but we've all come through the same place, right?
yeah,
And in that place, we had to be filled with love. We had to be nourished. We couldn't take care of ourselves. We've all been vulnerable, all of us, every single one of us. And so if we start to see ourselves, and everyone, even the people you don't like, that as part of that same process of love, and then we can go back to love for them, even though if we don't like what they do or the things that they say, we can still shower them with love instead of hatred. um,
yeah,
and that stuff. So going back to love, and that'll help you also find your purpose and passions and themes in life. But if you can't find those if you're in hatred, it's just
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah,
that hatred and resistance, negativity, judgments. When you're judging yourself, or nobody likes to be judged, but why do we judge so many other people? Like, I don't like to be judged, but why do I judge people? So it's like, if you don't like it on yourself, you need to really have awareness and practice not judging other people. And it could be as easy as like, I don't like your shoes. I mean, I'm just saying, like, but once you practice it, it's been a practice of mine to, like, if I look at something and I'm start to judge someone, I just switch it off and I turn it to something. And it's almost like a muscle in my mind now. I just don't have time to judge other people. I just don't have time.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have more space to be very productive. I'm extremely productive. I could write a book. The last book I wrote in 7 weeks, 70,000 words. I did 15 illustrations. I did healings. I was training for a marathon. Different things. Like, the only reason why I can achieve so many things, like, in a small amount of time, is because I'm practicing the things I'm allowing my brain to hold on to. If I
Yeah.
was to go
Yeah.
in the news and judge every single politician and every single bill and every single thing that's happening, I wouldn't have space to write a book.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have space to work on my physical body, and so I think that's been a really helpful practice of mine, is like this time and space is so valuable. What am I going to fill it with?
Yeah. 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 That was so inspiring. I mean, it's the first time I ever heard of an example of teams, So, but you're quite right. You're quite right. And I mean, we also have to blame, mainstream for all of this and all the material that we consume, out
Mhm.
there, where our attention is actually diverted, whereas you focused on yourself, it's your
Mhm.
journey. I always say, if anyone is going to make it in this world and develop themselves, you have to do it without the government, you have to do it without politicians, because they are not coming to save you anyway. They're not
No,
coming
for
to save
sure.
you. You have to save yourself. You have to build your own life. And that's
Yeah.
just how it is. I got to
Yeah.
ask though, like, even though you love each aspect of your life, do you ever get burnt out at any point? I mean, how's your
Oh,
time management? Like, what can you share about that? Because I mean, there's so many artists out there, and I can't pin down to any specific artist, just artists in general, whether you're a musician, a writer, illustrator, author, and they're finding it so hard, especially if you're an independent and you still need to put food on the table, you're still building yourself up. So,
yeah.
you need to work out, a schedule, and also a healthy schedule. I can't be sleeping 4 hours because I need to wake up for work, and then I want to come back and I want to work on my book, or I want to work on my music. Or you need to still, fit in exercise or eat healthy, where you can. What can you share
Yeah.
like about that?
Well, recognizing that wherever you are is exactly where you need to be, and finding out what that thing is that you are getting out of it. And also, still, even though it isn't, say, the end goal, like, say, if you're having to work a 9 to 5 and you're making very little money, but you want to be an artist, still recognizing that that 9 to 5 has value to you, and respect it. And the thing, for what I was noticing is it was really hard for people to stay out of the negative. Like, say, like office gossip. Oh, she did
Yeah,
this and he did that, and then just put your head down and really try to say, okay, and it's okay to build goals. Hey, I think I'm gonna try to stay here for 6 months, and um, what is this giving me? It could be the littlest thing, is like, I'm learning how to build frames. I'm learning mathematical things, and then you don't realize that later in life you might need to build your own frames for your artwork.
yeah,
So you recognizing that every little thing that you're learning and lesson is adding to your tool chest that you could use in the future. And again, practicing staying out of the negative. And then you have to follow your highest excitement, as much as possible. And so, for example, you know you might have to do that 9 to 5 job, but then you have like only 1.5 hours left afterward to do for yourself. um, really plan those or do you want to just sit on a boob tube and literally just watch? And sometimes you might have to do that because your mind is overwhelmed and you just want to relax. But that's a choice, and making that choice and saying, no, I don't want to think about nothing. I'm going to put something really dumb on and just chill out. and do that with awareness. Or if it's like, but if it doesn't excite me, if it makes you tired, that's a signal that maybe it's not the right energy for you. And you might then say, okay, I have this hour and a half, maybe I'll go take my dog for a walk around the block. And then you're moving the endorphins, and then you're getting in the dog, and you're connecting with animals, and you're connecting with nature, and that brings you more energy. So your choices matter. Every little choice you make matters. Every little thing you consume, every little piece of content, if you're watching, scary murderous movies constantly, and then you have to go out into the world and you're like you're fearful, it's sort of like, well, maybe some of the content you're watching is contributing to that. And you know and it's your own accountability and responsibility. You're the only one that's with you 24/7. I don't care if
Yeah.
you have a relationship, you're married. I mean, you are the only one. So really seeing all that time as valuable time to curate your own life. I curate my life. And the last 2 months has been really hard for me. I got kicked out of the place I was living. The lady was abusive. I had to move in with my sister. I lost all of my money. I'm starting all over from scratch. I haven't made a lot of money off the books, even though I'm really proud of them. I mean, so even though I work a lot and I have a lot of progress, and people see my resume and go, wow, you've done a lot. Like, I'm in a moment right now of, probably at the lowest place I've been financially in many years. I had to start all over. I'm living in a half done house. I moved to a place I didn't know a single person. Was very alone, and I have two 14-year-old dogs that were kind of sick. I really felt like I was at the end of like all this, but I really was having a hard time. But I really am. I moved back to Arizona from California, and I grew up here, and but for some reason I was like, I'm meant to be here. And the scenery was so beautiful, and it almost like could feel like this new energy just wash away all the stuff that I was carrying. And I've only been here 2 months, but I met a community of people. I met some guy at the park, and he invited me to this like ceremony healing thing in Sedona. And I met like 20 people in one day, and they all invited me to Chinese food. And then I met a fella that I started dating, and he's like the kindest, sweetest person, and we've been making dinners together. And it literally has been 2 months that I was like really like, oh my gosh, I've lost it all. I'm starting 100% over, and every day, and even having your podcast today, I just feel very emotional because it's like I'm coming back. It's been 2 months of really hard, but I'm like back to myself. I'm back into working. I'm connecting with people again, and I'm really grateful. And I was really hard last couple months, but I'm just like, so we all go through it. You know what I mean? And but I practice the things that I talk about and I talk about in my books. When the negativity was coming in, and I've had some people do some cruel things, and I just literally like had to practice. Like, it was the full moon, a strawberry full moon last night, and my new fella and I sat outside, and we did a whole meditation, and thinking of the ancestors, and it's the first time in the desert. And I'm not even kidding you, almost like if like I felt like the blackness of just the things I was carrying just started this, it just kind of dissipated, and I just felt like I went right into the light. And this morning I woke up, I had a completely new perspective. But I also respect those dark times. I didn't go down on myself and say, oh, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve happiness, like all those negative things. I recognize I was in a bad position, and it was terrible,
Yeah.
but I didn't go and start negatively self-talk to myself. And that's also been a huge practice of mine. I won't let myself be mean to myself. I won't love other people and other things more than I love myself. And and that's been a huge change of my life, because it's really easy to go like, oh, you screwed that up, oh, you messed that up, oh, you're not good at that, oh, you're bad at finances, oh, you look at your credit score, you feel judged or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, I'm sorry. those were all put into place to control people. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to be controlled by um, things that people created, especially, wealth. Some wealthy person created a credit score that or just for example, people in Japan, um, for example, debt, if you're in debt, is really looked poor upon in the community. And a lot of people commit suicide over just being in debt. And they lose
Yeah.
their actual life because they have bills. I feel I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to and I feel sorry for anyone, and I understand it but it's again that judgment, negative pressure that somebody created to
Yeah.
put us into a box. But I have to decide, am I going to let that energy that's been created hundreds of years ago to put us people into little boxes and say that I'm a bad person? I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's awareness
That's a
and
clapping
practice.
moment.
It's
That's a
practice.
clapping moment. I have these random clapping moments throughout the show, and that's your one. Like, I'm so touched. You actually made me emotional, and I want to thank you for being so transparent. Like, and that's what we need people, no matter where you are in life, high or low, just be open and honest and transparent, because that's how you connecting to the people that are struggling, especially psychologically, the most globally.
Yeah.
You mentioned debt in Japan. It's all over. It's even in South Africa. People get so scared and they're committing suicide over it. And I'm thinking, no, you know,
Mhm.
you're
It's
throwing your
bad.
whole life away
Yeah.
because you owe the bank does, or because they're sending you a letter telling you that you've been blacklisted and now you can't apply for another home loan. So don't live off credit. If you can't afford it, that's where the full stop is. Don't go above, after that. It's finished. If you can afford it, cool. But don't take credit. Work it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Thank you for being that was wow. That was wow. But also, I feel, I can relate. You go through this dark period, you know, and you have to go through this dark period. It can happen at any moment in your life, to get to the light of where you actually want to be. Because when you communicating with that higher power, when you're communicating with your ancestors or God, whoever you may pray to out there, you know, if they're going to take you there, it's levels. They're not just going to take you from year to year, like some bridge. No, you have to go through levels, and you have to look for those blessings in disguises. I'm quoting Winston Churchill again. You have to look for those blessings in disguises, because it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. There's something to be learned out of that experience. You just need to look for it. But if you're going to be like, oh no, why is this happening to me? Life sucks and there's so much bad luck and you're crying all the time, you're just going to attract more of that. You're not looking, okay, what can I be grateful for right now? I'm grateful that my lights is on. I'm grateful that I got water. I'm grateful that I got food. I'm grateful that I have a bed to sleep on. How many people
Yeah.
don't? You
Yeah.
know?
It's true. It's so true. I mean, even like stuff like honey, I was like trying to think about the bees that created them and things like that. Like sometimes you need to go into those fine, minute little things and just recognize just how beautiful this. I mean, we live in a really beautiful planet. I mean, we have species that have never been even discovered yet. There's something like 90% of the ocean's sea life hasn't even been discovered yet. You know what I mean? So when you start to, if you need like inspiration, I look outwardly into things like that I find very fascinating and interesting, and try to focus on that kind of stuff because yeah, I mean, if I focus on the things that like really hurt me, like things that I see in the news and things like that, I mean, it's good to have some awareness of what's going on in your world, but you can't ingest that. But also, you might be passionate about politics, but and you want to make changes. It's following your passion, and that's okay. But if it's not taking you to a place where you're thriving, then that's not the theme of your life. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I only mention that because, we America especially, I just like, I see that, we're focusing so much on that stuff, but we're not focusing on taking care of the elderly. We have animal abuse. We have
Yeah.
childhood trafficking issues. The things that we need to take care of our children. I mean, It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of missing children and being trafficked across the borders and things like that. Like, we really need to focus on really important things that we need to fix, and
Yeah.
together. And we can only do that through community.
Yeah. Community building. I was actually one of those kids growing up, I should be obsessed with politics. And, there's all these different political parties. And I was like, okay, I understand what their ideology is. And then I'm understanding there. Then there's the right and then there's the left, And at a young age, I'm learning all these things. And then I grew up. I mean, not like, in my teens. And I'm like, nah, something doesn't make sense here.
Yeah,
Doesn't make sense. This seems too like premeditated to me
yeah,
and then as you get in as I got into my 20s I realized, no, okay, if I'm going to make a change, I don't need to do it with the support of anyone out there. I'm just going to
yeah,
start something, and I'm just going to grow it day by day. If I can change one person's life today, that's enough. Tomorrow I'll try for two, and then three, gradually build it up. And that's what you need to do out there. Like, if you are passionate about animals, and you have this thing with animal abuse, don't go to like your local government or counselor or whoever, start something yourself. You mentioned
yeah,
community, find people in your community that have the same passion about, animal abuse, and then do something about it. Go out
yeah.
there. No one's going to stop you,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
When I was really suicidal, and one of the worst times I was very suicidal, really wanted to check out. I couldn't find anything anymore. I was to the point of where I was numb and I couldn't feel anything. And I went and volunteered at an animal rescue center, and it was like I was work. I had previously worked, a big job in the entertainment industry, making a ton of money, going to meetings and fancy clothes and all that stuff, and working on the lot. And then I got really depressed, and I kind of got blacklisted because I voiced my opinion about something that I felt was not right. And you can't do that in those kind of environments. So I kind of got blacklisted, like you were saying. So again, now I felt like I was outside this circle and I didn't belong because I wanted to share my voice. And I felt so outside the circle. I felt like nobody understood me or wanted me. And then all my old traumas that were unhealed came up to the front, childhood traumas and things like that. And they just start to pile on top of a person's soul. And I knew I was in really bad trouble and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I went and I volunteered at an animal sanctuary, and I was walking, and they put me in charge of all the animals that were like in wheelchairs. I mean, really hurt, abused animals. One dog had been thrown from a truck, and his front legs were shattered, and they had to cut them off, and he had a wheelchair and everything. And I was picking up dog poop. I literally was picking up dog shit. And excuse me for saying that, but and walking them. And I just remember after like 3 or 4 days, all of a sudden the energy started going, they need me. And that love,
Yeah.
like seeing something else that I was contributing to, I started to feel again. And the numbness started to go away. And it was almost like an egg cracking, and I was like coming out. And then, I started to feel better. But it was the simplest thing, is like I was in such bad shape. I needed to go and help something that needed more help than I did.
Yeah.
And it really did help me. It really did help me. I mean, we have a lot of people in convalescent hospitals here that don't have a single family member that come and visit them. You could go and volunteer to read a passage in a book for someone, or there's so, if people are your thing, there's endless opportunities to volunteer. I volunteer at the veterans now for the suicide prevention, and it's a huge thing in America. The veterans, I mean, the suicidal numbers, that they have all this trauma and they're lost, and they come back to their lives. They don't know who they are, where they belong, and they just want to leave. They don't want to be here. So I volunteer with the veterans a lot now. Going to be doing an art show on the July 23rd here in Arizona, and we're going to be cutting veterans
Nice.
hair for free that day. And just giving back. It's but you have to, if you're in a really bad place, don't feel bad that you're not giving. you
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
you first have to get healed, and take the time, and it's okay. um it's this slow process sometimes, depending on what trauma you have. I mean, I know in your country there's so much trauma. And I can imagine, how do you that trauma is real. The triggers come, they overwhelm your physical body. Creating that toolkit to help you, whether it could be therapy, there's all kinds of different new treatments like EMDR, like, that's, more natural instead of taking medication. I mean, we I have so many friends or people that I know that are so medicated. I know entire families. I'm talking about kids at 3, 4, 5 years old that are on antidepressants, and the entire family is on antidepressants. Like, the entire family. So, I just, there's got to be another way.
Yeah, there's to. There's the elderly lady who stays also in my area, and she should run, one of the charity shops, but she's no longer there. There's politics even in charity, right? There's
Yeah.
politics in religion, there's politics in churches, it's all over. So she left because of the politics, and then we like touch base with each other, now and again. And she gave me a call, and she said she went to, it's a normal, it's like how you would go to a GP, but she went to like a spiritual GP. Okay.
Okay.
And she was explaining to me how she did all these random tests, So I couldn't make out, exactly what happens. But I told her to send me the contact details because this sounds like, someone I want to go see. But she gets this 2-page report, with everything that's wrong with it at the moment that you will not get at a GP. And she even sent me pictures of it. And she says so actually, when she called me, it was just after the second time going back for the second consult. And she's like, Kino, you won't believe this. From 2 pages, it's gone down to like half a page of what I need to
Okay.
fix. And, she gave her all this spiritual, like, or natural, not spirit, natural, okay, spiritual and natural, but medication to use instead of what you're getting at the pharmacy and what the GP is giving you. And it's done wonders for her.
Oh, I love it.
Absolute wonders for us. So these people are out there. You just need to look for them.
Yeah.
Also, like, if you are suffering with anxiety or depression, taking medication all the time is not going to solve the root of those issues. It's
Yeah.
not. I know you touched on suicide. I know we've also invited you to talking back to suicide as well, and so you've also written a book about it.
Yes.
Any specific, I'm sure, okay, I'm not going to say any specific reason. I'm sure there is a specific reason why. You want to touch on that also on this show. We will go into depth, on the topic on talking back to
Yeah.
suicide. But, if you're comfortable to talk
Yes.
about why.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it so much, but I try to bring levity to the subject matter. Because, people say, oh, that's a dark subject, and you can't even say certain things online. And it's like, really? How I could watch movies where people get their head blown off 10 million different ways, but I can't talk about suicide. Uh, we need to change that, because if you want me to heal it in myself, but you tell me I can't talk about it, that's not right. But it isn't dark. It's heavy, but it's not dark. When you say the word dark, it's like, oh, it's dark. Like, no, it is heavy, and it's serious subject matter. But the more we talk about it, the more light we get it, the more it elevates. The events that I've had people come up to me and say, I can't believe this, like crying at the end of an event, saying, I was going to do that this morning, and I knew I had the option to go to your event, and everything just kept saying, just go to the event, just go to the event, just go. And by the time they were done, they felt so much lighter because they had me or other people sharing, hey, I felt like that too. And it's a little bit different than depression, like a typical depression, or maybe a diagnosis like bipolar disorder or all that stuff. Those kind of conditions that take sometimes, a very well trained therapist to kind of break that down. And there are good therapists out there. But suicidal ideation is usually, from my experience and the people I've spoken with, it's not everyday thing. It's something that just kind of lurks underneath because it's something that's unhealed. and all of a sudden, like, you'll lose your job, and then you kind of go back to that old thinking. Oh, see, I'm not worth it, I'm not good, I'm not worthy. And whatever record starts to play, then that starts to turn on. And those are the times that are really important, because those become from one to that becomes like 911 really quickly. And that might only happen once or twice a year. But so that's why nobody wants to talk about it, because it's like, well, I might only feel like this twice a year, and I don't want to tell people about it. Like, it's so serious. I don't want to be labeled. I don't want to have this stigma on me for something that might not even happen this year. I'm in a good space right now. So, but maybe then you meet a partner, and then you have a terrible breakup or something, and you just feel awful. So when we talk about it, it's like, oh, you mean you feel like that too? You felt like that too? Well, what
Yeah.
did you do? What did you do? And the more that we talk about it, really does lighten it. And that's why I try to bring light to it, because my spirit's very light now. And people would, I mean, I was very similar. I still had the same personality, but I would go home and like have dinner just like I am now with my friends. And in my mind, I was saying, your piece is POS. You need to go home. You need to end this. Like, they didn't know. Nobody knew.
Hmm.
Because we wear these masks and they're really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm grateful I don't have that anymore. But I was very sad for myself that I had that. And I had to basically create this second self, and this second self protects me. The second self loves me, will not let anybody hurt me. And I talk to myself in a way, it's like, you're not going to talk to yourself like that anymore. Yes, you're having a bad day. Yes, you have things you have to work out. But stop talking to yourself like that. You are beautiful. You're loving, you're kind, you're compassionate. You belong here. And then I would just say, okay, thank you. Like, almost to myself. Yep. Okay. I need to change this energy. Let's put on some music.
Yeah.
Let's start dancing. Let's get in our body. Let's feel our body. Oh, wow, look at my hands. They're so neat. I have all 10 fingers. I'm lucky. Not everybody has all their 10 fingers, and start to go through this scenario, like you were saying, like, I have water, oh good, I have coffee, the littlest things. And then all of a sudden it's like that the suicidal ideation, is just like all of a sudden it's gone, and you're like, oh, who needs that? And
Yeah.
that's sort of the process. But if you're not allowed to do that, if you're told that you are a terrible person for thinking that, it's only going to grow,
Yeah.
so yeah, don't let
It's
it.
also, yeah, it's the religious stereotype around it as well. Oh, someone committed suicide, then we're not going to talk about it. As a family, we're not even going to talk about it because that's wrong. You're going to hell. Whoever committed suicide is going to hell. But you're right, we need to bring more light to it, because the numbers are just hidden from society. The numbers are growing and growing and growing, and we definitely need to talk about it more. We shouldn't be ashamed to talk about mental illness.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be ashamed to speak out about it. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just you're going through something now that you don't understand. But there's people out there, even if they're not qualified. And I think, in this day and age, I trust the unqualified people more
Yeah.
than the qualified. Like, I would trust talking to Gina more, than a
Yeah.
qualified psychologist.
But
And
it's
you know,
it's worldwide. It's the number one worldwide epidemic in the world. It's something we all share. Like, we're not
yeah,
all, like, they're all of us, the entire planet shares this. And it's getting younger and younger. We have like 10-year-olds here in America that go to counselors and say, I want to, this is like, I always tell people, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for the children.
yeah,
They're only mimicking what they see adults do.
yeah, yeah.
Where did they get that idea
Yes,
at 10 years old?
yeah, 10 years old. It's weird, spiritually weird how you mentioned 10 years old, because last night on Talking Back to Suicide, we brought up the stats again, and it is kids from 10 years old that are starting to commit suicide, and we pinned it back to social media and competing with people online. So we're scrolling the whole day, and parents, educators are allowing it, and they're scrolling and they're seeing, okay, so I used Kylie Jenner as an example. first person that came to mind for some
Yeah.
reason as an example. So we're scrolling, we're seeing, oh, look, she bought a Ferrari or she bought a Lamborghini. Look how lavish her lifestyle is. And now we're comparing. So because now you're thinking, oh no, my life sucks. Look at her. I can't be like her. So now, you're trying to level up when you're supposed to be on your own unique journey. And because of that, kids are like, ending their lives at 10 years old, you know,
Yeah.
as a
No,
teen.
and they get bullied online and like one little thing, then they all get attacked. The bullying has to be figured out ASAP. And there needs to be active classes about conflict resolution at a very young age, about bullying. I mean, if you have to learn English and history or and science and all that stuff, there needs to be at least one class a day where it's like back to the like health social study, how to social, an hour of social engagement, how to deal with conflict, how to have arguments with other people. There's no conflict resolution. I mean, even I know so many adults that can't deal with any conflict. They'll just start to pop off. They lose their mind if they don't feel like they're in control of a conversation, or
Yeah,
they can't hear the other person. It's like they have no conflict resolution skills, and these are the adults. They
yeah,
can't just,
yeah,
they take it personal. Oh, you're saying I'm doing this and that. It's like, no, we have something. The world is full of conflicts. Doesn't matter what job, what social economics you come from, what kind of clothes you wear, what kind of social setting, what kind of your family. There's conflicts. Everybody has them. So if you don't have that skill on how to be calm and get grounded, to listen to the other person, they should be practicing that in school. Like
yeah,
here's a fight scenario, something like so. Okay, practice listening to someone else. Now respond to
yeah,
someone else without yelling or angry or wanting to hurt them. You know, so education just needs to change as well, and like we need to adapt. I mean, education hasn't changed, at least in America, for hundreds of years. It's the same exact thing, but as humans, we've changed. Our needs have changed.
yeah.
So why
You
why
know,
is why is the school? Yeah.
there's no commitment. There's no commitment. It was 2021 that I wrote, or I sent an article to the local media company, about bullying online, and you have to go to the root of it, that it's not happening at the school, it's not happening with the parents, and there needs to be some sort of control around it. But you get no response from them at
No.
all. You see, so
Yeah.
there's no commitment. And then you ask yourself, okay, why? So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. People feel like are
So,
overwhelmed. They're just overwhelmed. But again, we have to go back to the kids, and I think that's why I keep saying that, is because if you can't do it for yourself, maybe sometimes you need to look at a vulnerable, like that's why you like animals or whatever. But I go to the most vulnerable, which is usually the elderly or the children, and say, well, if we can't do it for us adults, like we have to do it for them. And then maybe it takes your ego out of it a little bit and say, oh, I'm really actually setting up a system for kids. Okay, I can do that. If you can't get out of your own ego way, then maybe you can do it for something like that. We just have to.
we just have to, exactly. We need
Yeah.
to get the message out there. Look, I mean, the world we live in is built by design.
Hmm.
If you're awakened enough to realize that, cool. If not, then I feel for you. I really do feel for you. There's so
Yeah.
much that, I can do, Gina can do, anyone that comes on the podcast can do. You're not going to get the commitment from schools. The system is not going to change because it's designed to keep you trapped. It's designed to keep you, emotionally trapped. It's designed to bring darkness into your life. That's why you
Yeah.
always get bad news and not good news.
Yeah. My brother was a school counselor. Exactly. That was his job. And he worked with middle school grade kids, and he finally couldn't do it anymore, and he retired a little early. But he said he was so limited by what he was able to do, because of legalities. um and he would have like a 6-year old or a 7-year old come and say that he has suicidal thoughts. There was a protocol you know, and a lot of, he said often the times that when he would call the parents and they didn't believe him, like they'd be like, no, my
Yeah.
kid wouldn't say that, no. And he said that was the number one challenge, was not the children, it was the parents. So because
Yeah.
they don't want to admit that their kid is having those kind of issues and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't, in America, we average 2 mass shootings a day, and we've gotten to the point where they don't even make the paper anymore. So mass shootings are 4 or more people injured, and we average 2 a day. And this has
Yeah.
been happening, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's 750 mass shootings a year, you know. And I kind of related that and a lot of the mass shootings, a lot of them are the youth, the male youth, right? And um, you know, I believe that they're partially suicidal, but then they become homicidal. So
Yeah.
we, you know, it's not just the innocent people who are struggling, it's people really that have the capacity to hurt hundreds of other people. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
not just that scared, lonely person who doesn't want to be on the planet anymore. It's someone who can go get an AR-15 and take out a school. So it is 911 for all of us. You know what I mean? And that's going back to the kids again. How do we have to figure out how we can help make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Well, you know, bring that, because those people know that they're going to get taken out. You know, they know that at the end of the day, they're not probably not going to be alive. So they go from a suicidal mindset to a homicidal mindset. And so, can we capture them in that middle before they go to the homicidal thing and help them as well? So it's really important.
You see, this is the news that any government doesn't want you to know, globally. Like, I wouldn't have known that there's 2 mass shootings, every single day in the US. And this is what they're trying to actually keep, like between themselves. I'm going to share something with you. And the more I spoke about it, with colleagues, with people in Canada and the States, the more it makes sense. So in April, I was invited to Los Angeles for an event to be one of the podcasters. And I've never been to the States before. So I was like, okay, cool, like I'm honored. And it was a publishing house. They call Writers and Illustrators of the Future. You should actually check them out. I'm actually going to send you the link because you
Okay.
do both. And you can
Yeah.
check out this competition. It's quite awesome what they're doing.
Okay.
So I'll send you the link. You can read about it. I'll also send you the podcast with the president of the publishing house, so you can listen, about what it's about. It happens each quarter, and the contest winners, and it's global. They invited each year to Los Angeles for like these huge Oscars. It's the Oscars for creators. So
Okay.
I'll send it to you, and you can check it out. And enter it, please do. So I was invited to be one of the podcasters to interview the winners, interview the judges. So it was short notice. So I had like 2 weeks, to get a visa approved and make the arrangements. So anyway, the agent that I used, he said, okay, look, I can get you an appointment, but you need to travel, what we would say in South Africa now, another province in the States, go to another state, to the embassy. So I rock up at the embassy, and the agent had no doubt that I was going to get the visa approved. No doubt at all, all checked out for me. I even had this invite. Cool, let's go for it. I rock up at the embassy. So this guy is there, and he's checking out my information. And he's only focusing on the podcast, and he's only asking me questions about the podcast. So he asked me a question about the podcast. He goes on thing, podcast. And keep in mind, the US embassy is the only embassy that wants your social media handles, from what I have found out, right?
Oh,
From my
okay.
agent, they're the only ones who want to know your social media handles. So it was quite strange how you were just like, asking me questions about the podcast, going looking. And then he asked me, the final question, cherry on top of the cake. Are you going to be interviewing people at the event itself, like a live interview? I'm like, yes, that's what I've been invited to do. He comes back and he tells me, oh no, we're rejecting your visa because you're a media personality. I was like, okay,
What?
so I never argue. I just accepted it. Is what it is. I come out, I call the agent. He got a shock. He's like, he's never heard of that before. So then the agent wants me to explain to me exactly what happened. I said, he's rejecting my visa because on their system, it shows that I'm a media personality and I need a separate visa for that. He's like, there is no visa for that. The
Yeah,
visa
there
that we
isn't.
applied for is the visa.
Yeah.
So then him and I are talking, and then I'm like, I'm communicating. Now there's another podcast that our co-host has as well that's called Creating Team Human. And the co-host for that, he's based in Canada. So I'm like, Don, this is what's up. He's like, no, this is deeper. And then he started asking me, okay, on your podcast, when I interview, people from the States, do they mention anything like about the government, like how you have just mentioned about mass shooting? I said, yes. And he's like, they know that. They know that.
Oh.
So what they're afraid of is that I am going to go to Los Angeles and could be maybe someone says, this is what's actually happening, because now this is decentralized. You can't stop this sort of communication. They can't stop me from putting this online. And, connecting the dots, agent chatting to this person, that person. I'm like, nah, this is politics.
Yeah,
This is politics, you know.
definitely. And that's
So
scary
imagine
because
now
a lot
me
of people
coming
in
to,
America think we're free.
yeah,
Like we don't have all that influence over our media, and that's one of the things I think is like really come out, especially over after COVID and all that stuff, was we realize that like the media really is just a business and they have their own interest. And back in the day when they started newspapers, here, you're thinking of the little kid standing on the corner, 1800. Oh, Butch Cassidy came in and this happened and there was a bank robbery or whatever. It was news, and now it's a
yeah, yeah,
business.
yeah.
And now it's a business. And their business is they've got certain things they need for their business and to keep those people employed and work. And it's really sad. But there is behind
Modern
the
day
scenes stuff
propaganda.
that it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
it
sorry
is.
about
It
that.
is.
That's a
But
bummer.
you know what? It doesn't stop us as creatives to keep doing what we're doing. And, I'm so grateful as well that even though I didn't attend the event, the president of the company, the people who work there, they still kept me involved.
Yeah,
They just did this press release, which came out today, on various outlets that are based, in the States. And, they even asked me to give a quotation, about the event itself. And I did. And they've just mentioned the podcast. They've mentioned me and quoting. And I felt so honored, like, wow, what an accomplishment. Even though I couldn't be there, yes, the company is still, giving gratitude for me for hosting them on my show and, sharing the
wow.
link to the podcast. So the reach is still getting out there. And
Yeah,
that's amazing. All these humans that we get involved with around the world, we're not stopping creativity. you know
yeah,
where were we from? We're not stopping it.
yeah,
So I mean, like, wow, like, wow. So
yeah,
thank you for sharing your story and being such an inspiration and motivation for creators and individuals that tune into this podcast. And I mean, the reason I started this podcast in 2021 is because I saw what was happening out there, with independent creators. And at the time, because I was involved in music, I focused on the independent space, in music. Now I've branched out into individuals such as yourself who
yeah,
carry so many hats: authors, illustrators, publishing house, you know, publishers, presidents of companies, coming on. And everyone is just offering so much value to the space. And all it
yeah,
takes is for that creator sitting out there somewhere, wherever you're from, just to, take that first step. Just like
yes,
writers and illustrators of the future, all you have to do, and the president of the company's name is John Goodwin, he says, all you have to do is
mhm,
just enter. Just enter. That's all you have to do. Keep it organic, no AI, right?
yeah.
That's one of the
I
rules
love
because they
those.
will pick up on it.
I love those because I do try to enter different things, and I'm always online looking. And then you'll get through this whole like application and everything, and then they go, oh, $900 application fee. They don't tell you at the end. And
Yeah.
for young small businesses and stuff, they can't do that.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and then I just X those people out. I have no interest in ever being a part of that stuff. But it is kind of like there's so many. We need
Yeah,
help.
there's I'm
We
actually,
need to help small
while
businesses.
it's
Yeah.
I'm actually um going to share the link with you in the private chat.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, let me check. This is how get the show is, right here. Creating opportunities right here. So can you just let me know if you got it?
Yep,
And keep
I
in mind,
got it.
I don't edit this
Woo!
part out of the show, when I share, because I wanted to be there. That's where you need to be at.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. So thank you. I've
So
never seen it.
once you go onto the link, you'll see it's going to show the 2025 award show. So this was actually the event, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Like, you are going to get so emotional. There was even, I can't remember her name, but she was a young lady from Hungary. I mean, that's one of the smallest countries in Europe. And she
Yeah.
actually was one of the contest winners. So you win the contest, they invite you out to Los Angeles, they pay for your tickets, they pay for your accommodation. But before the award show itself, you go through, like, it's different classes. There's different illustrators, there's guys who work at, I think it's Netflix as well. They come through, they coach you before the award ceremony itself. And there's prizes, you win cash money, and then there's the book. So now they're on number 41. So in this book itself, when it gets released, it's either your story is there or your illustration is there, and you get that publicity. And at the show itself, if you're one of the contest winners, like, you're a celebrity. You're going to get all the people coming there. They're going to take your autograph. You're going to sign. You're going to chat with them. You're going to get interviewed. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
Thank
And
you so
you
much
being a
for
writer
sharing
and an
that.
illustrator, I feel this is something for you. Check it out. Why not?
I'm going to do
Go
it.
for it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kino.
no problem. So where can people find you online? Where you
Um,
hanging out,
yeah,
chilling
Gina
out?
Cavalier, GinaCavalier.com, Gina Cavalier, CAVALIER.com, or theliberatedhealer.com is where I have all my meditations and courses. And my books are worldwide on Amazon and mom and pop shops. You just, Surviving Suicidal Ideation was my first book that was out in 2024. I also illustrated like 30 different images in it.
Wow, nice.
Published by the Swedenborg Foundation. And then I have my next book coming out in January 1 with O Books as the publisher. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep writing and doing the best I can to, love myself, but then love others and share my story. And I just want to send a big virtual hug out to anybody who needs it right now and let them know that, you belong here, you're loved. And, I thank you for your story and sitting with us. And thank you, Kino, for having me on your
Yeah.
show.
No, thank you. And if no one has told you yet today, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do for humanity, for humans, for creators, even though, you go through your own personal darkness. And that's what makes, that that light behind each creative out there, that message I want to push, that there's a deeper purpose, with your music, your writing, your illustration, and that's to benefit humanity. So no matter what, you go through, I go through, we still show up, we still push as much positivity as we can. Am I struggling with certain things? Of course I am. I'm human. I'm human, just like you. But I'm
Yes.
still out there saying, you can do it, you can make a difference, you can fulfill that dream of yours. Go out
Yes.
there, do it. Don't be afraid. Fear doesn't exist.
I want it
You're
all. I
only
want it
limited by your
all.
beliefs.
Thank you, Kino.
Your
Thank you,
beliefs.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye, Gina.
Bye. Thank you.